What to do, my loves? It's me, your girl, Empress Goddess, coming at you. Yeah, this is just my second time going live today, so y'all know I haven't been feeling good. But we're going to get in here and do a little short stream real quick.
Prepare to embark on a great and exciting journey as you have chosen to be self-initiated into the sacred mysteries. The powers of the universe have been delicately rearranged to garner the synchronicities which brought you to this film. Join us as we explore an age-old science and unravel the truths behind an art which has been shrouded in secrecy until now. Alchemy is a sacred science that's been practiced for thousands of years. Many would argue it's as old as civilization itself. The word alchemy translates al, Kemet, or from Egypt, as Egypt was well known as Kemet in ancient times. Kemet means the black land, as Egypt was well known for this due to their highly fertile soils along the Nile.
The term alchemy comes from the Arabic al-Chem, which in turn is said to come from the Egyptian Chem, meaning black, and referring to the Egyptians' own name for their country, Kemet, the Black Land. Thus the term alchemy is the origin of the term black art, though the meaning is very different than that later ascribed to this phrase. However, others say that the word comes from the Greek chemi. Considering that the Egyptians and the Greeks were in close contact for hundreds of years, and that the Greeks in fact ruled Egypt through the Ptolemaic dynasty for 300 years, and that each seriously influenced the culture of the other, the term could very well be a play on both words. The Hellenistic era, and Hellenistic Egypt in particular, was a very fertile time in the history of magic. Ancient forms of magic met and merged, creating new disciplines. Magical forms still very much in use today, such as Hermeticism and alchemy, have their origin in Hellenistic Egypt.
Much of alchemy is highly misunderstood and has been kept secret in a variety of magical and fraternal organizations. The list of alchemists is known to originate with Thoth, who is widely credited for being the author of science, religion, mathematics, geometry, philosophy, medicine, and magic. Thoth is said to bring to civilization the calculations for the establishment of the heavens, stars, earth, and everything in them. In other words, matter. Compare this to how his feminine counterpart, Mot, was the force which maintained the universe, otherwise, spirit. The unification of matter and spirit became a centerpiece in alchemical thought. As the teaching spread, Thoth became known in other cultures as the Greek god Hermes. The two formally became the same as Hermes Trismegistus, of which he is currently known. This was the birth of the Hermetic tradition, and remains the same in many aspects today. One of the foundational manuscripts of alchemy is known as the Emerald Tablet, which is said to contain the secrets of the art. Many translations are available. Perhaps one of the most well-known was done by Isaac Newton. "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of one only thing. And as all things have been and arose from one by the meditation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father, the moon its mother. The wind hath carried in its belly, the earth its nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force or power is entire if it be converted into earth. Separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, sweetly with great industry. It ascends from the earth to the heaven, and again it descends to the earth and receives the fourth things superior and inferior. By this means you shall have the glory of the whole world, and thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing, and penetrates every solid thing. So was the world created. From this are and do come admirable adaptations, whereof the means or process is here in this. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended. Famous alchemists have included the likes of Pythagoras, Galileo, Da Vinci, and Isaac Newton.
Newton was not only the father of physics, he tried to be the father of chemistry as well, except back then in the 1600s, they called it alchemy. So we have to realize that science, as noble as it is, has very humble beginnings.
In fact, many researchers feel very strongly about how important the teachings were and the influence alchemy has had on many of the great minds of our time.
The secret teachings were known as esoteric or occult or symbolist teachings and were held to contain the secrets of the universe and the keys to great magic. Those who were allowed to receive the mysteries often went on to join a who's who of historical movers and shakers. Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, Galileo, Copernicus, Da Vinci, Kepler, Isaac Newton, Napoleon. They were rewarded for their pursuit of the ancient wisdom with not just knowledge, but a new way of thinking that allowed them to write their names in human history. Hermeticism and the writings from the Hermetica were held to be the Western retelling of the wisdom from the mystery schools. They contained, albeit in a degenerated form, strains of the ancient wisdom said to have been passed down from the gods.
There are fragmentary Hermetic texts dating from 3rd, 2nd, 1st centuries AD, in which the language and mode of expression is ancient Greek, but the subject matter is, if not entirely, largely derived from or actually a part of the ancient Egyptian doctrine of the transformation of the soul. This is the basis of the Hermetic belief, and it then proliferates into those various disciplines, is practiced in one form or another throughout Islam, percolates up into Western Europe in the Italian Renaissance, and then occupies much of the minds and hearts and studies of major Renaissance figures, up to and including Isaac Newton, who actually spent much more time of his life studying alchemy and number symbolism than he did studying what would now be modern science. This is an acknowledged fact that is seldom acknowledged by modern scientists. But as a matter of fact, Newton might be called not one of the last, certainly, but one of the most eminent of the Hermeticists.
The alchemist's journey is known as the Great Work and is broken down into several chemical, psychological, physiological, societal, and planetary levels. The alchemists work with what is known as the three primes, or tria prima. These are sulfur, the omnipresent spirit of life; mercury, the fluid connection between the high and the low; and salt, base matter. The four elements are also very important to the alchemist and stand as primary principles: fire, water, earth, and air. All play an integral part in the alchemist's studies. The alchemist is familiar with 7 primary metals which are ruled, influenced, or dominated by 7 planetary influences used in alchemical work. They are gold, dominated by the sun, which provides energy and life to everything in the solar system. The sun is our sense of self, our willpower, organizing ability, self-integration, energy levels, vitality, and success. The sun corresponds to the heart, spinal column, vision, and distribution of heat in the body. Silver, dominated by the moon, which influences water, growth, fertility, conception, emotions, instinct, subconscious, psychic phenomena, collective consciousness, rhythms and cycles, genetics, and cultural heritage. The moon corresponds to the brain, female organs, stomach, and all fluids in the body. Copper, dominated by Venus, which influences herbalism, spagyrics, magic, arts, music, poetry, design, theater, harmony, proportion, integration, meditation of opposites into a whole, odors, perfumes, and love. Venus corresponds to the skin, kidneys, perspiration, transformation and enrichment of substances within the body, sexual organs, and smell. Iron, dominated by Mars, which influences intense and often violent energy that brings dynamic power to all it encounters. It increases psychic ability as well as motion and power in the physical realm. Mars corresponds to the muscular system, male sexual organs, marrow, blood formation, adrenaline, and the purging of the body to maintain health. Tin, dominated by Jupiter, which influences good health, wealth, philosophical and religious matters, ceremony, and the enjoyment of life. Jupiter corresponds to the liver, arteries of the stomach and abdomen, digestion and assimilation of oxygen and nutrition, antibiotic functions, cell growth, and general energy levels. Mercury, dominated by Mercury, which influences communication, commerce, initiation into the mysteries, alchemy, Kabbalah, astrology, magic, writing, transmission of information, nerves, dexterity, mental skills, and speedy distribution of energy. Corresponds to the nerves, speech, hearing, coordination between thoughts and speech or actions, throat, thyroid, nervous system, and spinal fluid. Lead, dominated by Saturn, which influences old age, chronic disease, karma, and learning. Saturn corresponds to the bones, teeth, spleen, hair, minerals in the body, joints, and flexibility. Calcination is the first of the following 7 major operations in the alchemy of transformation. Chemically, the calcination process involves heating a substance in a crucible or over an open flame until it is reduced to ashes. In the Arcanum experiment, calcination is represented by sulfuric acid, which the alchemist made from a naturally occurring substance called vitriol. Sulfuric acid is a powerful corrosive that eats away flesh and reacts with all metals except gold. Psychologically, this is the destruction of ego and our attachments to material possessions. Calcination is usually a natural humbling process as we are gradually assaulted and overcome by the trials and tribulations of life, though it can be a deliberate surrender of our inherent hubris gained through a variety of spiritual disciplines that ignite the fire of introspection and self-evaluation. Physiologically, the fire of calcination can be experienced as the metabolic discipline or aerobic activity that tunes the body, burning off excesses from overindulgence and producing a lean, mean fighting machine. Calcination begins in the base or lead chakra at the sacral cup of the base of the spine. In society, the calcination is expressed in the lives of revolutionaries, conquerors, and other warriors who try to overthrow the status quo. On the planetary level, it is the fire of creation, the formation of a livable environment from molten matter and volcanic ashes. Dissolution is the second major operation in the alchemy of transformation. Chemically, it is the dissolving of the ashes from the calcination in water. In the Arcanum experiment, dissolution is represented by iron oxide or rust, which illustrates the potentially corrosive powers of water on even the hardest of metals. When processed, vitriol breaks down into sulfuric acid and iron oxide, which are the first 2 arcana or secret ingredients. The Egyptians smelted iron as far back as 1500 BCE and used iron compounds in tonics and disinfectants. Psychologically, this represents the further breaking down of the artificial structures of the psyche by total immersion in the unconscious, non-rational, feminine, or rejected parts of our minds. It is, for the most part, an unconscious process in which our conscious minds let go of control and allow the surfacing of buried material. It is the opening of the floodgates and generating new energies from the waters held back. Dissolution can be experienced as flow, the bliss of well-being, and actively engaged in creative acts without traditional prejudices, personal hang-ups, or established hierarchy getting in the way. Physiologically, dissolution is the continuance of the Kundalini experience, the opening up of energy channels in the body to recharge and elevate every single cell. Dissolution takes place in the genital or 10 chakra and involves the lungs and spleen. In society, the process of steady growth through gradual dissolution is examined by agrarian, monastic, or agricultural-based lifestyles. On the planetary level, dissolution is the great flood, the cleansing of the earth of all that is inferior. Separation is the third operation of transformation in alchemy. Chemically, it is the isolation of the components of dissolution by filtration and then discarding any ungenuine or unworthy material. In the Arcanum experiment, separation is represented by the compound sodium carbonate, which separates out of water and appears as white soda ash on dry lake beds. The oldest known deposits are in Egypt. The alchemists sometimes refer to this compound as natron, which means the common tendency in all salts to form solid bodies or precipitates. Psychologically, this is the process of rediscovery of our essence and the reclaiming of dream and visionary gold previously rejected by the masculine, rational part of our minds. It is, for the most part, a conscious process in which we review formerly hidden material and decide what to discard and what to reintegrate into our refined personality. Much of this shadowy material is things we are ashamed of or were taught to hide away by our parents, churches, and schooling. Separation is the letting go of the self-inflicted restraints to our true nature so we can shine through. Physiologically, separation is the following and controlling the breath in the body as it works with the forces of spirit and soul to give birth to new energy and physical renewal. Separation begins in the navel or iron chakra, located at the level of the solar plexus. In society, separation is expressed as the establishment of clans, cities, and nationalities. Separation on the planetary level is represented by the formation of land masses and islands from the powerful forces of air, water, earth, and fire. Conjunction is the fourth of the 7 operations of alchemy. Chemically, it is the recombination of saved elements from separation into a new substance. In the Arcanum experiment, conjunction is symbolized by a nitrate compound known as cubic saltpeter or potassium nitrate, which the alchemists called natron, or simply salt. Blue-colored natron acid, or aqua fortis, was made by mixing potassium nitrate with sulfuric acid and was used to separate silver from gold. The inert residue precipitated from the acid during the reaction, like a child being born. Psychologically, it is the empowerment of our true selves, the union of both masculine and feminine sides of our personalities into a new belief system or intuitive state of consciousness. The alchemists referred to this as the lesser stone, and after it has been achieved, the adept is able to clearly discern what needs to be done to achieve lasting enlightenment, which is the union over the self, and often synchronicities begin to occur and confirm that the alchemist is on the right track. Physiologically, conjunction is using the body's sexual energies to perform transformation. Conjunction takes place at the level of the heart or copper chakra. In society, it is the growth of crafts and technologies to master the environment. On the planetary level, conjunction occurs when primordial life forms are created from the energies of the sun or lighting. Fermentation is the 5th operation in the alchemy of transformation. Fermentation is the 2-step process that begins with the putrefaction of the hermaphroditic child from the conjunction, resulting in its death and resurrection to a new level of being. The fermentation phase then begins with the introduction of new life into the product of conjunction to strengthen it and ensure its survival. Chemically, the fermentation is the growth of a ferment bacteria in organic solutions, such as occurs in the fermenting of milk to produce curds and cheese, or in fermenting of grapes to make wine. In the Arcanum experiment, the process of fermentation is represented by a compound called liquor hepatis, which is an oily, reddish-brown mixture of ammonia and the rotten egg-smelling compound hydrogen sulfide. Egyptian alchemists made ammonia by heating camel dung in sealed containers and thought of it as kind of a refined mercury that embodied the life force. Liquor hepatis means liquor of the liver, which they believed was the seat of the soul, and the color they associated with the compound was green, the color of bile. Surprisingly, liquor hepatis exudes a wonderful fragrance, and the alchemists made a perfume of it called balsam of the soul. Psychologically, the fermentation process starts with the inspiration of spiritual power from above that reanimates, energizes, and enlightens the alchemist. Out of the blackness of his putrefaction comes the yellow ferment, which appears like a golden wax flowing out of the foul matter of the soul. Its arrival is announced by a brilliant display of colors and meaningful visions called the peacock's tail. Fermentation can be achieved through various activities that include intense prayer, desire for mystical union, breakdown of the personality, transpersonal therapy, psychedelic drugs, and deep meditation. Fermentation is the living inspiration from something that is totally beyond us. Physiologically, fermentation is the rousing of living energy, chi or kundalini, in the body to heal and vivify. It is expressed as the vibratory tones and spoken truths that emerge from the throat or Mercury chakra. In society, the fermentation experience is the basis of religion, and on the planetary level, it is the evolution of life to produce higher states of consciousness. Distillation is the sixth major operation in the alchemy of transformation. Chemically, it is the boiling and condensation of the fermented solution to increase its purity, such as takes place in the distilling of wine to make brandy. In the Arcanum experiment, distillation is represented by a compound known as black pulvis solaris, which is made by mixing black antimony with purified sulfur. The two immediately clump together to make what the alchemists called azure, a kind of sublimated solid that forms in the intestines and the brain. Psychologically, distillation is the agitation and sublimation of psychic forces is necessary to ensure that no impurities from the inflated ego or deeply immersed id are incorporated into the next and final stage. Personal distillation consists of a variety of introspective techniques that raise the content of the psyche to its highest level possible, free from the sentimentality and emotions, cut off from even one's personal identity. Distillation is the purification of the unborn self, all that we truly are and can be. Physiologically, distillation is the raising of the life force repeatedly from the lower regions of the cauldron of the body to the brain, what Oriental alchemists called the circulation of the light, where it eventually becomes a wondrous, solidifying light of power. Distillation is said to culminate in the third eye area of the forehead at the level of the pituitary and pineal gland in the brow or silver chakra. In society, distillation is experienced as a science or objective experimentation. On the planetary level, distillation is the realization of the power of higher love as the life force from the entire planet gradually seeks to become one force in nature based on a shared vision of truth. Coagulation is the seventh and final operation of transformation in alchemy. Chemically, coagulation is the precipitation or sublimation of the purified ferment from distillation. In the Arcanum experiment, coagulation is represented by a compound called red pulvis solaris, which is a reddish-orange powder of pure sulfur mixed with a therapeutic mercury compound, red mercuric oxide. The name pulvis solaris means powder of the sun, and the alchemists believed it could instantly perfect any substance to which it was added. Psychologically, coagulation is first sensed as a new confidence that is beyond all things, though it may be experienced as a second body of golden coalesced light, a permanent vehicle of consciousness that embodies the highest aspirations and evolution of the mind. Coagulation incarnates and releases the ultimate materia of the soul, the astral body, which the alchemists also referred to as the greater or philosopher's stone. Using this magical stone, the alchemists believed that they could exist on all levels of reality. Physiologically, this stage is marked by the release of the elixir in the blood that rejuvenates the body into a perfect vessel of health. A brain ambrosia is said to be released through the interaction of light from the phallic-shaped pineal gland and matter from the vulva of the pituitary. This heavenly food, or viaticum, both nourishes and energizes the cells without any waste products being produced. These physiological and psychological processes create the second body, a body of solid light that emerges through the crown or gold chakra. In society, it is the living wisdom in which everybody exists on the same light of evolved consciousness and knowledge of truth. On a planetary level, coagulation is the return to the Garden of Eden, this time on a higher level in tune with the divine mind.
Most people have a very mistaken view of what alchemy is, based largely upon the caricatures of its enemies and the misunderstandings of the uninformed. The image of the alchemist, as benighted proto-chemist, vainly bent on turning lead into gold, totally misses the point of alchemical thought. It is true, the Western alchemists, like their Chinese counterparts, did work with a variety of substances to try and create various elixirs with arcane effects, including the idea of transmutation of base metals. However, this was a small aspect of alchemy, and to define alchemy by this is like defining Taoism as the search for the elixir of immortality. It misses the real point altogether. In reality, alchemy was and is an advanced spiritual discipline, closely related to modern Wicca in its concepts and images. These concepts and images were presented in largely coded form so that they could be read by the unenlightened as relating to chemistry and physical operations, and by the enlightened as a system of spiritual wisdom. Thus, the true alchemist was not trying to turn ordinary lead into gold, though the casual observer might reasonably think so from how things were presented. Rather, they were striving to turn the lead of an ordinary and undeveloped consciousness into the gold of a fully realized and enlightened soul.
The successful result of the alchemical process was the creation of the philosopher's stone. Like a true symbol, the steps can be applied to many things. It is the process, the machine. What you put into it metaphorically will undergo the archetypal steps if carefully attended by the alchemist and culminate in a higher state, the alchemical gold, charcoal, and a diamond. When we use charcoal as the focus of an alchemical operation, we begin by recognizing that its essential ingredient, carbon, is the materia prima that will emerge perfected as the diamond. When the charcoal undergoes the cleansing fire and a stress of geological proportions, it is hardened into a perfect, impenetrable diamond. It becomes itself the geometric map of perfect universal order, from the highest spiritual registers to the lowest physical realms. The universal order can be seen as the lattice which guides the growth of the vine, as an archetype that guides and supports life on the material plane. While many agents can be introduced into this machine and undergo the archetypal steps to its perfection, the one to which the most closely guarded alchemical allegory and occult law is addressed is consciousness itself. This is the essence of the great work, the application of this special key to this mysterious universal formula. The key directs the alchemical process to the materia prima of our very consciousness, our awareness, ourselves, our mental selves, or spiritual selves. Consciousness is the materia prima. While the value of creating alchemical glass or alchemical gold may seem more obvious, one might ask, what is the benefit of applying the alchemical steps to consciousness?
Like modern Wicca, alchemy saw the world as a male-female duality. Alchemical ideas about this duality are strikingly similar to Wiccan ideas about goddess and god. The masculine polarity was thought of as red and fixed, the feminine polarity as white and volatile. The union of these two produced the physical world. The great work, or alchemical marriage, was the quest to unite and transcend this duality. It is the great work, which is often mistakenly described as the quest to transmute base metals. The great work began with what is termed materia prima. This is the ordinary state of being, the lead in the analogy. The great work ended in the creation of the philosopher's stone. This is enlightenment, or the gold of the analogy. The materia prima was considered to have both a masculine and a feminine aspect, which were in opposition within it, until brought into alignment through the great work, hence the term alchemical marriage. The great work has three main parts: the nigredo, the albedo, and finally the rubedo. These correspond to the sacred colors of the Wiccan goddess: black, white, and red. In addition, a fourth stage, called the cauda pavonis, marked the transition between nigredo and albedo. Symbolically, the materia prima was placed into an athanor, or alchemical furnace, which subjected it to steady pressure and reduced it to its constituent parts. This residue was the nigredo, the destruction of preconceived forms considered necessary for new growth to occur. What this really means is that before one can grow spiritually, one must first eliminate old ideas and limitations. As the Zen Buddhists say, only an empty bowl can be filled. Alchemists describe this principle through the maxim, no generation without corruption, an idea similar to the Wiccan to rise you must fall. New growth cannot take place until the old is cleared away. The nigredo then fermented until at length the cauda pavonis occurred. This was portrayed as a light show of many colors. This means that when we have purified ourselves of old ideas, we may then experience many new ideas, and indeed will at first run riot with them, learning all we can from all sources. During this period, we may in fact be bedazzled or blinded by the newfound light. But through the application of self-control, we can learn to discern what is helpful to our growth and what is merely entertaining. After the cauda pavonis, the subject must be purified, resulting in the albedo. The albedo is a pure and receptive spiritual state. This means that after initial euphoria, a more controlled spiritual growth may unfold, elevating and expanding the consciousness. Finally, after being subjected to pressure again, the albedo becomes activated as the rubedo. What this means is that spiritual knowledge, to be valuable, must be put into practice. No matter how deep the ideas, or how great the abilities, they mean nothing if they are, as Mabel Heikerel once put it, left on a shelf to gather dust. Thus, old ideas must first be transcended. Then controlled spiritual growth can lead to spiritual enlightenment, which must be put into practice to be of value. This is, of course, an oversimplification, in that it is the opposite of the alchemist's own tendency, which was to overcomplication. Like the ceremonials, alchemists phrased their writings in intentionally obscure wording, ostensibly to shield their teachings from those they considered unworthy. It also served to shield themselves from persecution by religious fanatics. Alchemists used a rich symbology that included elemental, planetary, and mineral symbolism, as well as a good dose of ancient paganism. One of the principal themes of alchemical symbolism is the union of opposites, which is expressed in many ways throughout alchemical art. Such familiar figures as the four elements, the twin dragons, and the Ouroboros, the great serpent of the universe eating its own tail, were of great importance in alchemy. The masculine principle was likened to the sun and also to sulfur, while the feminine was considered lunar and likened to Mercury. The inner fire, what we today call the eternal flame or the divine spark, was described as a salt. It is this mineral symbolism above all which has led to the idea that alchemy was entirely concerned with protochemistry operations. True, alchemists did engage in such protochemistry operations in the belief that it would shed light on their spiritual operations under the credo, as above, so below, which is a principal pillar of alchemical thought, as of modern Wiccan thought. However, it was a dilettante alchemist who misunderstood the spiritual nature of the teachings and turned instead to chemical operations, not realizing that they were a code for higher knowledge.
And now we can see the big picture coming into focus. Could that spark of consciousness in us all be connected to spiritual enlightenment? And by intense focus on the development of consciousness, could alchemists truly reach these levels? Even modern science is beginning to tell us a great deal about our consciousness and its connection to the rest of the infinite universe. Our knowledge of the power of the human brain has seen great strides in recent years, and possible interactions with certain glands such as the pineal are continually being investigated with many successes. In his groundbreaking book detailing his research, Dr. Rick Strassman outlines his discoveries with the pineal gland and a substance known as dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, while administering the substance to a controlled group of volunteer patients. DMT is the most potent psychedelic known thus far, is highly illegal in nearly everywhere in the world, yet it appears to be produced naturally by our pineal gland during REM stages of sleep, deep meditation, and possibly during fetal development and near-death and death experiences. The patients also reported extremely intense spiritual experiences, many of which were frightened to a fear of death due to its intensity. Could this be the sacred and mysterious, divine nectar-like substance produced in the brain during the latter levels of spiritual enlightenment, as described by the alchemists? These questions have profound implications, as much of this knowledge has been occult or secret, found only in magical and hermetic societies. Millions of Hindus bathe where the sacred Ganges and Juma rivers meet. The scriptures tell how the divine nectar, which is said to confer immortality and everlasting bliss, was once spilled into the rivers during an epic fight between the demons and the gods. They believed that from their scriptured legends, they might be able to thereby speed their way to nirvana and be spared the pain of countless rebirths in man's universe. Amazingly, this appears to be a universal aspiration of the alchemist as well. Many say the substance occurs as the activation of the Ajna chakra, or third eye, takes place. This is where the sun and the moon, the masculine and feminine, right and left brain become balanced and synergistic. This makes sense scientifically, where the brainwave patterns of each hemisphere could create a magnetic field by this balance in the exact location of the pineal, located within the hypothalamus in the center of the brain. Within nearly every culture that has existed, there is a reference to the activation of the third eye, or Ajna chakra. This is no coincidence, but rather something that even science should be inclined to research due to its statistical probability alone. In actuality, there is quite a bit of substantiated evidence of this sacred science being all that it's described as and more, when one has the keys to its meaning and applies it diligently to their life. Should alchemy continue to be unknown and hidden within the areas such as the Vatican and secret societies who wish to withhold it from mankind? Or should the knowledge and light be given to those that seek, as Prometheus did when he stole the fire from Zeus and gave it to mankind? This is the story of Eden, which tells us of a God that wants mankind to continue just tending to the garden, not to have a consciousness, not to have spirituality, not to be like him. It is our destiny to re-enter Eden and freely eat from the tree and drink from the waters of life. As it is written, surely we will not die, but know that which God knows. By this we realize our true nature and divinity. We must understand that we are truly spiritual beings having a human experience, not humans trying to have a spiritual experience. It is a diligent alchemist who comes to understand the true nature of reality and become the master, the guru, the teacher in their physical, emotional, and spiritual growth, a master of their own destiny. So what happened to the spiritual aspects of alchemy when modern chemistry and physics became common knowledge of that which concerns matter, following the works of Isaac Newton? Much of the interest in psychological and spiritual aspects of alchemy were nearly forgotten in modern science until the work of Carl Jung, who revolutionized psychology by exposing the relationships between alchemy, Platonism, and modern psychology techniques. In fact, he believed, much according to the credo, as above, so below, that one could be understood by understanding the other.
I was always looking for something in between, something that linked that remote past with the present moment. And I found, to my amazement, it is alchemy. It is the basis of our modern way of perceiving things. And therefore, it is as if it were right under the threshold of consciousness. It's a wonderful picture of how the development of archetypes, that is, the movement of archetypes, looks when you look upon them as if from above. From today you look back into the past and you see how the present moment has evolved out of the past. And we can construct or even predict.
Modern-day philosopher and author Terence McKenna also did a great deal to revive spiritual alchemy and its connection to consciousness and our divine nature, which he consistently reiterated in his many lectures.
Everything occurs in the presence of its opposite, and out of that there is generated the friction, the heat, and the light that all comes together in an indissoluble package as part of life. So what I want to talk to you about tonight, and how it relates to unfolding the stone, is the notion of alchemy of all things. Alchemy, as I'm sure many of you know, is really the secret tradition of the redemption of spirit from matter. But many of you may imagine that alchemy is simply a discredited pre-scientific obsession of unbalanced minds interested in changing base metals into gold, lead into the stuff of commerce. This is the benighted reputation that alchemy has acquired in a century so given over to the literal and the material and the non-spiritual that it's lost all touch with the adumbrations of meaning that vibrate behind the perceptions of the alchemists. The central conception of alchemy is the conception of the philosopher's stone. What is it? It's the universal panacea at the end of time. It's the chocolate cake that your mother made once a week when you were a child. The panis supersubstantialis. It's all things to all men and all women. If you are hungry, you eat it. If you're dirty, you shower under it. If you need to go somewhere, you sit on it and you fly there. If you have a question, it answers it. It's something that the human mind senses in itself and related to, invoked, worshipped over centuries before the slow rise of the patriarchy and rationalism and materialism turned it into a myth, a fairy tale. It is not a myth or a fairy tale. It is the burning primary reality that lies behind the dross of appearances. Alchemy is based on a philosophy called Hermeticism that was developed in the 1st and 2nd centuries by Gnostic thinkers, Greeks, Jews, people inside the Roman Empire as it was beginning to show the first signs of degradation and decay, who felt a profound disaffection with their world, a disaffection that on the scale of those times was as profound as our own existential disaffection. And the Hermetic philosophers drew back from the rise of Christianity with its doctrine of the fall of man and original sin and the stain of Adam and Eve and that whole thing, and took a different tack and made 2 points which I think we need to recover and live out for ourselves. And the first point was that man, which means men and women, human beings,
the nativity of Christ it is important for all of us to visualize, to understand, to comprehend what Christ is. Because there is a lot of mistaken interpretations, assumptions of what Christ is, and also what the nativity is, which, as you know, is in this day and age is called Christmas. This Christmas or Christ word is rooted in the Greek language, which in Greek is written with a letter it has the form of an X. It's called EqG, CHI. And when you write that in Greek, has the form of an X. Which gives another hieroglyphic that is very often represented when you place a P, I guess like that, and the X. But really, the letter P, which which in Latin is P,
Welcome to the presentation of a lecture from Gnostic Radio, a free public service from the Gnostic tradition of Samael Aun Weor. Gnosis is the root wisdom of all the world's great religions. Gnosis is a universal teaching of practical science, whose goal is absolute liberation from suffering and the complete development of the human being. This lecture is one of many available by free download or podcast. The hundreds of hours of lectures range in topic and complexity in order to address the many needs of humanity. Each Saturday, Gnostic Radio broadcasts live. The live lecture is accompanied by an online chat, allowing listeners to read additional explanations related to the lecture and providing an opportunity to ask questions of the speaker. To learn how to participate or tune into our continuous web broadcast, visit our website for more information at gnosticradio.org. Gnostic Radio is made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. For more information or to make a donation, visit our website at gnosticradio.org. Now, with heartfelt wishes for the end of suffering for all creatures, we begin the lecture. May all beings be happy.
And as the Gospel of John, when he refers to the Word of God, and he says,
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The beautiful verses that we always repeat in several lectures, because we are always pointing at the Lord Christ, who in the book of Revelation said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. If you observe the sign of the pentagram, which is a star that we Gnostics use in order to protect ourselves from negative forces. It's a sign that has several symbols that we will explain today in short, general, because it implies a lot. To begin, we have to state that since we said that the pentagram, the microcosmic star, is the Word of God made flesh, of course, we go into the words written in it. And we find different alphabets. To begin, the word written around it says tetragrammaton. As you see, it is written with Latin letters, but it is a Greek word, which means the lettered name of God, the four-lettered name of God, which in Kabbalah, in Hebrew, are named Yod, He, Vav, He, and which are written in the right arm of the pentagram. In the left is right the word Aleph, Dalet, Mem, final. We always say Mem final because in Hebrew alphabet there are two mems. A mem that you write in the beginning or in the middle of the word, but when you write mem at the end of a word, is different. Then you have to close it because the mem, which is normal at the beginning or in the middle of the word, is open. A sign which is open. But mem final is closed, which symbolizes the womb. An open womb is mem. A closed womb is mem too, but final. And it is written in in different ways. For instance, Eliphaz Levi, that talks very in detail about the pentagram. You see the image of the pentagram in his book, and you see that the letter mem is a kind of hand close, which is the same mem, which in different graphics, when they copy the symbol, they think that is a letter nun and the letter yod, which will form the word Adonai, but it is not. This is just that copy of that pentagram of Eliphaz Levi is Adam, because that image represents the man into the image of God, called the Adam Solus. And of course, Adam Yod Chava is precisely that man that you see there and represented in the first words written in its arms. And that is, of course, what we call the tetragrammaton, because Adam symbolizes, after the division of sexes, the phallus, as the woman represents the vagina, call it yoni.
Worry lead to lack of self-worth and fear. You look at yourself in the mirror and all you see is an aging human being. And that's all you think life is about. Where is my youth, you say? Why can't I go backwards, you say? What is life all about? I am such a small part of this system. And that dark thing inside you will say, right on, boy. Have you got it right? You are nothing. You never will be. You're here by accident. When you die, that's it. You're gone. And for whatever reason, the human hangs his head and says, yeah. In your perspective, it may not be fair, what I'm about to say, but fair is 3D for you and does not represent the grandness of what humans have set up for themselves on this planet. For the dark side of you is easy to bring out. The God side of you is not. The irony is that it is so easy to bring out that you have denied it and created an entity who is responsible, the devil. So it seems the devil is everywhere and God is nowhere. The reality is that this is the balance of duality. You have to look for God, but the dark side is always pushing the buttons. It was created this way and is fair in its balance. You will see why in the last section. For the discovery of the God self tilts the balance forever. There are reasons for all of this that are very profound but difficult to explain in 3D. There's got to be a balance, a yin and a yang to everything within nature. It's always about balance. The test of energy on Earth is done by pieces of God disguised as humans. They come, they go, changing parts in this play of energy. They're not being tested, but rather are performing the test themselves. Where will the balance go when you give them both dark and light? And what will happen to Earth? The answers are hidden from you, but are part of the universal self and the fabric of what everything is about right now regarding this Earth, the only planet of free choice for now. Those who give away themselves to these darker energies of their own duality will then fall even further to the next layer of darkness. Rage, hate, violence, death, murder without remorse. Indeed, you'll say, now, Mr. Cryan, you're talking about evil. Really? And what is evil? I'll tell you, it's the dark side of what is in the human being ready to be developed and matured. If you want to go there to be an evil person, you've got all the power you want at your disposal. You can go right to it, for it is free choice. God won't stand in your way. Did you know that? Oh, there are so many humans that will say, well, that's when the devil's involved. He'll help me. He'll pull me down there. And there are cults who worship this very thing. The truth, nobody's pulling you anywhere, dear human beings. That is your free choice. Many humans go there because that's where they find their power. That's where they have power over other humans to create worry, drama, and control. The dictators of this planet, past and present, that's where they find their power. They get people to pay attention to them. If they murder enough human beings, it creates notches of fear on their power belt. That is what they do, and I don't have to tell you that. You know it. And I'll tell you, although that is evil, that is the human being exercising the power of evil. You may not want to hear this, but I have to tell you, it's needed for your full understanding of what comes next. The human being is powerful in both directions. It has the angel or the devil energies at its core. Dear Cryan, you just told me there's no such thing as a devil. I don't believe it. I have been places and I have seen the magic. I have seen demons cast out of humans' bodies. I have seen physical forms actually crawl around on the floor and leave. Human being, do you believe in miracles? And so, who told you they were always with light? Do you remember me telling you about balance? Black magic is simply miracles created from the dark power of a human. A human being can do that. There are those who said, well, I've seen voodoo. It's so real. It's so real. People give themselves over. They're killed and they got sick only because of suggestion. That's evil. And again, I would say, welcome to the power of the human being. Look into your history. Look at the dictators who spoke the words that convinced so many people they were right, just so they could murder millions. I will tell you, this is the capability of the human, and it is powerful. The other side of the coin. Now, why would I tell you these things? Do not fear any of this, for I've only told you about what is the core of you, and you are in control of it all. There's another side to this, dear one. If you're reading this and hearing this for the first time, and this is lesson 2 for you, I want to tell you that this is going to get better. That dark part of you right now is saying, I don't believe it. Don't read any further. Don't listen anymore. Why? Because now I'm going to give you the rest of the story. The dark part knows that if you look further, it's all over, because you'll see something it does not want you to see. Free choice to see the balancing power, and oh, what a power. If you could see the bucket brigade of angels in your space right now, taking the energy of interest that you have developed, you'd be amazed. For they are getting ready to fight your fight with you. You come to this planet with a piece of God in you. The dark thing in you is set to temper the beginning energy that creates karma. It is for a reason, and you have it when you were born. How many of you taught your children to be angry when another child wanted to play with a toy? How many of you parents taught your children to be jealous or to go into a rage? And you'll say, I never taught my child any of these things. And I will say, I know. They came and equipped with it, and so did you. Are you beginning to understand? Now we get to the good news. You can balance this or not. Most of humanity just sits and allows it. That is to say that the perception is that it's with you in a balance that is just as strong as the other side. You see it in your culture every day. You're taught that you have to go report to the building and confess all the awful things that you are and have in your mind. That's a reprieve from God's anger for a little while. Then back comes a dark thing, and you've got to go back to that building and confess it again. What a concept of surrender. It's a constant yin and yang, is it not? Between being washed and being dirty. What mythology? Do you think God actually created that system? Here's what God created. Inside of you is a divine system for balancing this duality in a way where it won't be able to get a foothold. Use pure intent and say, Dear God, I am tired of this. Show me what it is I need to know to help put this in perspective. This is the beginning, for it represents you in an intent mode, pushing on the door of the other side of the veil, asking to discover the divinity inside. It will come the beginning of balance. And we told you that in the first lesson. It will come a complete and total system. It will put that dark side of you into a place that you won't be able to find. The duality of dark and light was created for this system on this planet. But these two energies are very, very different. The darkness within you has no idea what you're doing spiritually. Think about that. Those of you who make decisions spiritually and follow the map of intuition and discernment, who pull upon the peace of God in yourself, create an energy that is invisible to the other side of your duality. That thing that is dark has no idea what you're doing or what you're done. It's just angry that it cannot reach you anymore. Once you step into the light and begin this journey, that thing that gave you such a problem all your life is relegated to being not essential. It's like a child in the back seat who pounds upon the seat, irritates you, and wants to know, are we there yet? That's all it could do, pound on the back seat, but it's always there, and sometimes it's louder than at other times. Some are bothered, even those who are light workers. They say, why is it there's such a cyclical attribute to this? I thought that my spiritual work would keep it totally quiet. Not so, since it is always ready to pounce. There are cycles of weakness. Again, it is a balance. Now, did I have to tell you this? Dear light worker, do not beat yourself up emotionally because you go through these cycles. Sometimes it is more difficult and sometimes less so. There are highs and lows, and it's totally normal. This is normal because, dear human being, you're always working the puzzle between this light and dark energy. It is an ongoing battle that will never end until your last breath. But those of you who've stepped into the light have the advantage. All this may sound super simple. I'll remind you of my light teachings of many years. A stadium filled with darkness, with 10,000 people, will be affected by one who turns on one light. For when you turn on one light, no matter how dark it is, darkness as defined cannot exist. This is the power. So you see the fairness in this. Although the challenging side of humanity shows itself intuitively, and the God side does not, when you find the light, it pushes the duality into a status of limbo, where the darkness is trapped. Therefore, the power is on the side of the light. Light is active. Darkness is not. Darkness cannot show up and change a lighted room, but light will totally change a dark room. Perhaps it's time to try this with pure intent. Say, "Dear God, tell me what it is I need to know." That starts the progress. Don't tell God what to do in your life. Instead, say, "I am ready to know." That is a statement of wisdom, and that's when you begin to find out who you are. Don't be surprised if love flows into your heart. Don't be surprised if you find angels taking your hand and you can't explain the feeling. Don't be surprised if you have unexplained peace and fear. That's the big one. Take a look at where fear starts. It starts at the gut. This is a lower energy attribute of humanity. It has nothing to do with your enlightenment or your third eye. It starts in that place where you can control it. But if you don't, it will quickly move into your mind. The next time you have a fearful response, do you have the courage, the wisdom, the wherewithal to say, "Stop, I know what you're doing. Do not move." Do not allow that darkness and that fear to go any further than the bottom of your heart. Let your wisdom and your love and your knowledge of who God is inside you take over. Then you will find the fear will go away. It will dissipate. Sometimes it will try to get you in the middle of the night, but even then you can control it totally. Think of the love of God next to you in a protective, lighted state. Say, "Get away, get in the back seat. I know who you are. You are the dark part of me, but you are not driving anymore." Does all this sound simple? Perhaps foolish? Could it be the answer to so much of life's challenge would be this easy? Ask around. It's not easy, but it's a profound step of faith that begins to separate you internally from a part of you that you thought was from somewhere else. Many feel separation anxiety. We even told you about this in the Cryon Book 1. We called it the implant. It's an implantation of permission to change the duality, and that's the light worker. I told you what I told my partner Lee when he first started doing this. I said, "Dear partner, you now have the ability with your light to stand within the highest mythology of the planet. Stand in the pentagram. Do it while they dress up in funny costumes and chant odd words in order to hurt you. Let them try their magic on you. All you have to do is smile at their attempts. For your light is far grander than anything that a human being can conjure up with their own darkness, far greater than any darkness even a group of human beings can create. For you've tapped into the source. Ask him, he did it. For there was a time when a group hurled their magic at him during the first trip to the United Nations, and the result was nothing. Darkness hurled at light creates no effect. That's the truth. The object of this lesson, dear one, is so that you hear the truth that you are more powerful than any dark thing on this planet, more powerful than any demon that you're told might be in you. And if you want proof, just press on the door to God, let us in, and you will know that what I have told you today is true. That is why they call it a veil, for it completely hides what is actually there. Be aware, today we have not asked you to join anything, have we? Be aware, today we have not asked you to follow any protocol that introduces you to many books or lessons to buy. Instead, we invite you to read the instructions within the DNA that you came here with. Let mastery show itself, shamans that you are. That's the message of today. That's the only one that we're going to give like this one. It's something for you to think about as you look at the push and pull of energies on this planet. And blessed are those who have felt the energy of this day and of this lesson. For they are dearly loved by an entity who just wants to be with them, me. It makes you wonder who came to see whom, doesn't it? And so it is. The Lightworker's Handbook, Lesson 3. Greetings, I am Cryon of Magnetic Services. Could it be that, as I said this morning, that the room has been filled with an energy beyond expectation, coming from places you wouldn't understand. In this place exists an energy who knows you so well that it touches your heart. No matter who you are or what your culture is or where you come from, it touches your heart. Why? If I told you that all have something in common, it would be beyond belief for you, for indeed, you all come from the same place. There is a commonality, a truth that says you all are the same in a certain way. Home is the same for all of you. So perhaps that is what you feel as you come into this place. As you associate with human beings you'll never see again, do you feel the connection? What does that mean to you? Do you understand the bridges and bonds that you build here profoundly out of time? Did you know that this is a place where love is generated? Did you know this is a place where it's safe to think differently? Not all of you have come to see the spook show, you know. Some of you are just enduring this time of esoterics. I know who you are, so let me address you. You are so loved for your patients, so loved for your patients. Do you know that there is not one guide, one angel, or one entity on this side of the veil who's going to bother you? If you walk out of this place and say, I don't care anything about this, I don't believe in this, that guy wasn't really channeling, you know. He was pretending. If you leave in total belief, it changes nothing about the way this sister, brother, crying feels about you. Free choice it is for the human, and it is respected. For if and when you're ready, it is then you may choose to open the door of belief into the esoteric and not before. God does not place energies upon those who wish to be untouched by the experience. Let me tell you how these messages are going to be structured and what the messages will be this night and the next. For this night, we are going to load up on the esoteric. Then tomorrow night, we're going to load up on the physics and the astronomy. These will be very different kinds of channeling. They're being given separately, but in my reality, they're being given simultaneously together. For you, they are a pair of messages that are opposites but related. So if you listen or read or hear one, be sure to experience the other like bookends. They balance one another. One is the most esoteric and one the more scientific. So tomorrow, I will do what I have not done in a very long time. I will give pure physics, pure science. I will explain some things to the limit of the allowance I'm able to reveal, giving hints about the way things work and why they work the way they do. I will explain some of the unexplainable things that astronomers see and some of the things that physics has totally and completely missed. I'll even rewrite some of the laws of physics that you depend on for a logical system. But tonight is for the woo-woo group. I knew you liked that. My partner told me to use that word. The woo-woo stuff. I know the things that you are criticized the highest for. I know who's here. I know what some of you endure for the beliefs you have that are outside of the culture's accepted thinking. Some of you have come here totally and completely alone, knowing that when you go back, you can't really share what happens here. Yet you'll want to. You want to take somebody aside and say, well, I went someplace and I know I was touched. Somehow I was touched. I don't even know what touched me. I just know that I feel so good. I feel empowered to do things I could never do before. And all by myself, and I wish I could share it with you. But you can't do that, can you? If that is you, I would like to give you a message. It is not necessary that you share anything with another human, really. Just go away joyful, healed, blessed, and carry with you a consciousness and light that, by your actions, show your shift to your family, to your workers, to your culture. Let that be your message, for that is the way of it and always has been. I must preface all the esoterics by again walking you through the challenges that we have from this side of the veil as Cryon, arriving into a three-dimensional existence, trying our best to give you interdimensional information. Here is the example for you. Try someday to explain color to a human being who never had sight. They don't even have the experience of seeing, yet here you are trying to explain red and blue. That's a difficulty in any of these messages for us. Since the very beginning of time, this particular universe has been set up so all you see is the singular, and you are linear in your perception. This linearity of your perception totally establishes what you believe is real and what you believe is not. And if you can't see it, then it doesn't exist. If you cannot see it, you cannot even talk about it, even though you have invisible forces around you that you take for granted, like magnetics and gravity. You can't go past that. Both of those are provable at the see it level, for you can see the effect of them clearly every day. But if you can't see what others see, the colors or the energy around things, then it's foolish. Therefore, there are those who say, I choose to be linear. Some hear at night just like that. It's comfortable, and you are used to it. But it's a biased linearity, and you don't even know it. Your survival depends on you being in a linear world. So very early on, your brain was trained not to let you see anything that would not suit your linear existence. Therefore, you have a biased reality. Even though your actual physical eyes may see colors, your brain denies you the visible. It does not suit your linear reality. Every single human in this place is so linear and so used to it that none of you realize how reality crippled you are. As three-dimensional, linear human beings, you show up for a 7-hour conference where each speaker has to deliver the message to you one word at a time, and your brain must listen one word at a time. It's like your entire reality is on this small, little, thin track as you move only forward, never back or up or down or left or right, only forward. It's as a thin string that you balance on, and everything around you works that way. But you're used to it, so it doesn't seem limiting. When you get a book, you read it in a linear fashion, one word at a time. Even those of you who are speed readers are reading one page at a time. It's still linear, one after the other. You are reality crippled and don't even know it. If you had quantum reality as we do, you would see conceptually everything at once. You could see the entire possibility, potential scenario, and the messages all at once, out of linearity. You could come into a room like this and receive the whole day's messages in a few seconds, as though you had listened all day in a linear fashion. You could take books and read them by touching them and holding them for a moment. This is one who can move up, down, left, right, forward, and back in reality. You can't imagine. You saw an example of this today. In general, a true interdimensional human existence is very rare. You're in 3D for a reason, since this is the energy you developed. You have control of your own reality and the perceptions you have of the whole. So you sit in what you have created. Your life is lived in 3D, and you walk away from this place one step at a time in 3D. Therefore, when we speak of the esoteric things, there is little justification or proof, for it does not justify itself in 3D. But for those of you who wish to cross the bridge of reality with me tonight, I wish to talk about the most esoteric things in your belief system. And we will touch on many of them. There would seem to be no science behind these things. But that's only because your idea of science is based totally on the 3D. As you begin to reach out of the 3D box, someday your science will indeed justify the esoteric. For them, the theories and the postulations and rules will be interdimensionally based. Such is the way of it. Today's foolishness is, therefore, tomorrow's science. And it has been this way as long as you have been human. Wouldn't it be fun to place you in a time machine where you could explain to your ancestors how you could talk to anyone on Earth with a little device in your hand? Or throw pictures through the air up into space and have them received again almost anywhere on Earth? Good luck with this. But you wouldn't get far before they would want to stone you, burn you, or at least ignore you for being one of them, the weird ones who consort with the devil. Seen any of these in your culture? And then there are those who say, I don't believe in anything unless I can see it. And so let us address this issue first, for it is so very common with so many of you. I must see it, they say. In addition, Mr. New Age, don't talk about odd things in the ethers. Don't talk about intuitive movement, which you call kinesiology. Don't talk about numerology. Don't talk about astrology. And don't talk about past lives to me. Don't talk about Lemurians in the mountain to me. I can't see them because they don't exist. It's all fairy talk. Invisible things exist all around you and you take them for granted. But they're part of your reality in 3D. Somehow you've justified these, haven't you? Air is too small to see, but the microscope shows it. Therefore, it's not really invisible, you say. Love is an emotion that's felt, not seen. That's okay, since you can experience it. Gravity and magnetism are so big you can see the results of them constantly. So they're okay too in the 3D mind. So the 3D mind would seem to allow anything that a device can measure, but the body can feel as real. But I'm speaking of something that you are going to have to reach out for, since it can only be seen and experienced with spiritual intent, changing the 3D rules a bit. Therefore, the unseen things I speak of can only be experienced by changing your reality, something you have permission to do. If you can suspend your 3D bias for just a moment, you can cross that bridge with me into a quantum state, just for a moment. This is the beginning of the softening of the false reality box you are in, moving to the allowance of things unseen to be part of your possibility. How would you feel if someday a device was able to see interdimensional energy? Would that be fairy talk, or would it then be okay? You will actually have that decision to make sooner than you think. Truth, the big misunderstanding. One of the most difficult things to speak about to a biased 3D mind, and one which really exposes the linearity of your thinking, is one of the most basic things you deal with. What is truth? Oh, good. Cryan's going to tell us what truth is. Yes, I am. You are right, and you're not going to like it, for it's not in 3D. Truth is the attribute of when the human heart marries the love of God, and the results are the passion for the spiritual path that enhances that human. Some of you have had this experience, and you know your truth, don't you? And you will often say, this is my truth. But how do you feel when it isn't someone else's truth? They may have theirs as well, not like yours. But it may be just as passionate for their marriage to their love of God. What they see in their potentials and what they do, the actions which they have, the integrity which they hold for spirit, the direction they go in, may be very, very different from yours. How do you feel about that? Are they wrong? Cryan, are you about to tell us that there are many truths? Yes, but more than that, indeed, there are many truths. But the human brain, biased in singularity, yells, there's got to be only one truth. This is something that is at the core of all spirituality, one truth. There cannot be many. We are all looking for the one truth. It's responsible for all the religions on the planet and most of the wars. It is the commensurate search for God. And I say, how 3D of you. What if there were multiple realities of truth that all led to the same place? Would you be okay with that? For that is the way that it works. If you really need the one singularity of truth, I will give it to you. You are all connected. How do you like that? But think about it. Do all the parts of each earthly machine know the whole picture? Do they know why they exist? Well, not in a linear world, they don't. What if you were all parts of a giant truth machine, all working together for the purpose you didn't really understand? I'm telling you, these truth connections are like the spokes of a hub of a wheel. There are trillions of them, and they all lead to the center, and they are all called truth. Well, some will say, I don't like that. You don't like it since it doesn't fit your linear box. Let's talk about food. The sustenance of life is food. The sustenance of your spiritual growth is your truth. It is your passion. What are you going to do based upon the truth that you have that is the marriage of you and your higher self? What are you going to do in life? Whatever you then do is your truth, and it's known only unto you. It's personal, but it's a linearity of human existence that then wishes to generalize it, paste it upon groups of humans, and call it a doctrine. Put it in one box, and you feel better about it, don't you? It's far easier when you have an authority outside yourself to tell you what your truth is. Then it's not your responsibility. If I told you there was only one kind of food, what would you say? Well, you wouldn't like that either, would you? What if the giant food angels came down and said, stop this? You're all going to have to stop eating what you're eating and change because there's only one food. You'd say, that doesn't work. That's ridiculous. That's silly. And I'm saying to you, it's the same kind of attribute when it comes to spiritual truth. Spiritual sustenance is individual and unique. The search for truth is not the search for one thing that all will then participate in. That is a very 3D, biased, singular thought. So here's what you got to look at. I have told you that there's truth for every human being in the room. one that is isolated and separate and unique. Yet there is quantum effect here. When you get together, somehow those truths meld together one purpose, don't they? There is a commonality within your intuition of the face of God. There's a commonality of where the truth of the day is manifest in front of you. And those who experience it are okay with that, for they see the bigger picture. So the interesting thing is that although you come here as an individual seeking unique truth, together you are seeking one goal. Because in the higher connection between the truth, there is a synchronicity, and that is the love of God. The higher self you have, that esoteric thing you cannot see, seems to be the glue that makes the quantum effect work, seems to straighten it all out. There is your singularity. Intelligent cells. Let us talk about intuitive motion. Modern medicine does not like this, that there are light workers using their own bodies to test the chemicals in the foods that they should put in them. You call it kinesiology, muscle testing. Somehow, someway, your body is supposed to know, beyond what your brain or your intellect knows, of what's good for you and what's bad for you. Therefore, you see many light workers walking around doing these kinds of testing on their body, and it looks odd to those who don't share the belief. Too weird, they say. That's the silliest thing I've ever seen. What are those people doing? Let's put it into perspective. Will you cross this esoteric bridge with me? What's your biology designed to do? My partner, I want you to go slow on this one. What if you had a disease in your body? Let's pretend it was something like a cancer and it's present in you right now. Oh, intellectual one, whose brain is at the top of the evolutionary ladder. Why is it you don't know it? Why doesn't your brain alert you? Aren't you tuned into the cellular structure of every cell? Shouldn't your brain be getting the message that something is growing inside you that's not only inappropriate, but that might even cause you death? Every system in your body is wired up to talk to your brain, so why don't you know it? I will tell you, you evolved this way, for your body is about survival, and it's always in survival mode first. If there were a neural protocol to inform you every time your body's antibodies went into action, you would be in constant anxiety. Very bad for survival. No, you're kept from it. It's a total and complete block. You could be carrying it around with you and discovered it accidentally. Too late. Doesn't seem right, does it? However, you're designed to have a consciousness where the brain believes that the body's defenses are good enough to take care of anything. So it doesn't bother you with the details. But your cellular structure knows all about it, wouldn't you think? Every cell knows what's going on. So you have then a subconscious system that is working these things. Perhaps for months there has been a battle every day within the cells, yet you walk around having no idea. So a system exists that takes the innate knowledge of what is going on in your cellular structure and communicates it to you. It's out of the intellectual loop. Very difficult to believe for logical thinkers, and it's called kinesiology. Try it. Your body will give you information if you ask it in ways that go around the intellect. It is real. It is practiced by many. So there is a reality record. It is also the same process used for what you have called the pendulum. Your fingers grasp the pendulum on the end of the chain of the string. And which direction it goes helps you decide what to do for yourself. Yet many who see this run screaming the other way. You must be part of some evil cult, they say. Somehow they have assigned what you are doing to mythology. You are using the energy of the devil, they say. You are using the pendulum. Gasp. What is going on with the process of the pendulum is simply mini kinesiology. It is literally that muscles of the finger beyond your ability to control them, responding to a question that is about cellular structure. As you try to hold your fingers very still, the muscles move to give you a message, swinging the pendulum one way or the other. It's innate intelligence trying to go around your intellect through your muscles, and it works. What would you think of a medical doctor whipping out his pendulum for answers every time you wanted to know dosages? Well, some do. One is actually here. Use this process if you wish to find out what's going on in your body, what's best for you, what kind of food are you allergic to. All of these things your body knows, but the intellect is in survival, in the 3D box, and won't tell you anything. Astrology. Let's move to another one. Astrology. Unfortunately, I cannot talk to you about astrology tonight because it's not esoteric. It is extremely scientific. It's the oldest science on the planet, so I'll postpone the astrology until later. I will give you the physics of it, how it works, and why it works. Perhaps I'll take the magic right out of it, and some of you might not like that. For many love the mysticism of it all. The definition of mysticism is the unexplained science of God. Numerology, an energy system. I wish to broach a subject that is so difficult and which defines esoteric. The 3D part of you must suspend itself completely for this explanation to even come close to being succinct. If I'm going to tell you how numerology works, I'm going to have to tell you about the other side of the veil. I'm going to have to tell you about an interdimensional state of quantumness that represents the way things work for you, but that you are unaware of. In this string of reality that you're on, which is linear, a time frame that is so limited you cannot stop the clock. It keeps going no matter what. You cannot reverse it. It only goes in one direction, and you're always moving. You can't stop. You can't go forward at another speed or backward at all. What a limitation. Imagine now going to a place where there is no time at all, where reality can move in all directions at once. There is a tremendous amount of confusion for you because everything looks random. Instead of an orderly, singular 3D reality, it looks like chaos. What you are seeing is every potential possible for you and your neighbor and everyone on the planet, all together in one place. There's no timeline put upon any of them. Therefore, not only are the potentials there of what you might do after you leave this meeting, but the potentials of what you used to do and what you call the past. All the potentials that were there that you missed and did not do, all together in one place. Can you imagine something that is so chaotic? So you sit and you look at this and it looks so confusing and disorganized, and all you say is, get me back to that linear string where it is so simple. This is a quantum state, and to you, as you cross the bridge from 3D even marginally into that quantum state, it looks chaotic, incredibly chaotic, because there are no visible rules. There's no system, apparently, because the things you see don't follow what you would expect in 3D. They're not simple or singular or organized in a way you can figure out. So you say, get me out of here. This is similar to the situation where you have sightless humans from birth who are suddenly able to have limited sight through your new scientific discoveries. But when they receive it, they say, cover my eyes. It's just too different than the simplicity of what I'm used to. So it is with a 3D individual when they go across the veil and it looks like chaos. It isn't, but it isn't what they are used to. Even your best scientists had difficulty in the early days of quantum physics. They saw the apparent disorganization and randomness and objected. They shouted phrases like, my God cannot be chaotic God. I will not be part of a system that is chaotic. It's not the way the universe works. There must be a system. There must be a plan. There have to be laws, no chaos. And they're right. For now we say to you that what appears to be 3D confusion is quantum organization. There actually is a system, and it has to do with vibration and energy. In this system, anything that vibrates at any frequency in an interdimensional way sets up potentials that are marked for their vibratory rate. This is very difficult to explain. They then become marked potentials. These represent potentials that are most likely to manifest into 3D reality because there is a unique vibration around them as opposed to ones that do not vibrate. In addition, there are strings of vibration that are beautiful, that are always between all of the potentials. There are strings between what appears to be the chaos between one person and another, how they met, what they do. You call this coincidence, but a light worker calls it